Hello, everyone. Tonight we are sitting in a living room where the silence feels heavier than the walls themselves. The lamps are on, but they don't bring comfort. Only shadows. Long, slow shadows stretching across the floor, as if they know something I don't. The tea in my hand has gone cold. I haven't taken a sip. I'm not even sure I can feel my fingers around the mug anymore. Because tonight I saw something. Just one photo, that's all it took. Not a scream, not a confession, not even a lie. Just a picture, frozen, innocent at first glance, but not to me. And now, everything feels different. The couch I'm sitting on. We picked it together. The books on the shelf. He carried them when we moved in. The rug under my feet. We argued for weeks about the pattern. All of it feels like part of some stage set now. A beautiful lie, dressed in warm lighting and quiet comfort. Like the last scene before the truth comes crashing in. I trusted him. With my home, my life, my heart. And tonight, I realized, maybe I never really knew who he was. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you really like what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? What time is it there? I want to know who's out there, sitting in their own quiet rooms, maybe holding their own cold cup of tea. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe turn on a fan. Let it hum in the background like a heartbeat. And let's begin this story. The story of how a single photo ended everything I believed in. The first time I saw Daniel, he was standing at the farmer's market. A blue shirt, rolled sleeves, holding a basket of peaches like he'd actually grown them himself. He looked grounded, warm, like someone who belonged to this world in a way I never quite did. I was there for honey. My favorite vendor wasn't there, so I wandered, and I ended up at his stall. Except it wasn't his stall. He was just helping a friend. He smiled. Not a flirty smile. A kind one. The kind that feels like home. And for some reason, I smiled back. He said something about how the peaches were overpriced but worth it. I made a joke about being a terrible cook. We both laughed, and in that moment, there was a silence that said more than the words we didn't know how to say. We bumped into each other again 2 weeks later. Same place. This time, I stayed longer. We walked and talked like people who already knew each other. He told me he worked in architecture, loved old buildings, found comfort in restoring broken things. I told him I wrote grants for nonprofits. He said that made me sound like a saint. I said I was just good at making things sound better than they were. And that made him pause. "You're honest," he said. And I remember thinking, that's rare. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't whirlwind. It was gentle. The kind of beginning that doesn't scream for attention. Just settles in. Quietly. Like dust on sunlight. Weeks turned into months. Texts turned into dinners. Dinners turned into weekend mornings in his kitchen. His coffee. His playlists. His slow way of moving through the world. It was like learning a language I didn't know I needed to speak. He made me feel like I wasn't too much. Like I wasn't too quiet. Or too intense. Or too uncertain. He listened. He remembered. He showed up. And when he looked at me, I felt seen. That's what made everything later hurt so much more. Because I didn't just fall in love with him, I let him in. I let him see the parts I used to hide. And I believed he was the one place I didn't have to hide anymore. Love didn't rush in like a wave. It built. Like morning light slipping through curtains. Slow, sure. Undeniable. Daniel became part of my rhythm. My days began with his voice and ended with his name showing up on my phone, even if just to say goodnight. He remembered how I took my tea, which scarf I hated, the way I avoided walking under scaffolding because of that one time in college. He didn't just notice things, he filed them away, like I was worth remembering. And when I told him about my past, about the ex who once emptied my savings account and called it a misunderstanding, Daniel didn't flinch. He said, "That's not going to be your story anymore." And I believed him. A few months in, he surprised me with a key. Not to his heart, but to his apartment. He said it like it was casual, but his voice cracked just a little, like he knew it wasn't. It was the first time I cried in front of him, not out of sadness, out of the sheer shock of being trusted, of being wanted in someone's real space. Soon, we were inseparable. Dinner at his place, laundry on Sundays, movie marathons where we'd never finish the movie. I was folding into a life that finally fit. And I didn't just trust Daniel. I relaxed into him. I started letting him help with things, bills, emails, passwords. He insisted on sharing our calendars, our grocery lists, our emergency contacts. I want us to function like one unit, he said. And I thought, isn't that what love looks like? I stopped questioning little things, like why he needed to check my mail when I was out of town, or why he changed the Wi-Fi password and forgot to tell me. It didn't feel like control, it felt like care. Or at least, that's how I wanted it to feel. Because when you love someone deeply, you start editing your own instincts. You start telling yourself, he's thoughtful, not, he's watching too closely. And so, I gave him everything, every key, every piece of me I once kept locked away. I thought I was building something solid. I didn't know I was handing him the blueprint for how to break me. Moving in with Daniel felt natural, like slipping into a sweater that had always been mine. There was no grand proposal, no dramatic, will you move in? Moment. One day, we just started putting our lives in the same drawers. He cleared out half his closet, built an extra shelf for my books, said he loved how my things made the apartment feel real. And that word stuck with me, real, because that's how he made everything feel, solid, earned, permanent. We picked out new plates together, framed photos from a weekend at the lake, adopted a cactus that we both forgot to water, but it somehow lived longer than it should have. Our neighbors thought we were married, and to be honest, sometimes it felt like we were. He'd introduce me as his person. That phrase always made my stomach flutter, and not in a bad way. We split bills, opened a joint account for shared expenses. He insisted on adding me to his emergency contact list at work. I added him to mine. My friends said we looked like the kind of couple you see in ads. You know, the ones laughing over spilled coffee or cuddling under a blanket. And sure, there were little quirks. He didn't like when I rearranged the fridge, or when I wore my old university hoodie instead of something presentable when we had guests. But I brushed it off. Everyone has preferences, right? He was organized, precise, cared about appearances, especially at family events. His sister once pulled me aside and whispered, "He's never been like this with anyone. He must really love you." And I smiled. But something about her tone made me wonder what "like this" actually meant. Still, I pushed the thought away. Because when you're happy, you don't go looking for shadows in the light. And I was happy. At least, I thought I was. We made plans, weekend trips, holiday menus, a Pinterest board for the house we might buy one day. I trusted the way he looked at me in the morning, the way he tucked my hair behind my ear when I was reading, the way he said, "You and me, kid, we've got this." And maybe that's why I missed it. The signs, the static beneath the harmony. Because when the music is beautiful, you don't notice when one string quietly starts to snap. It started small, tiny things, like the way he'd pause before answering simple questions. "Did you stop by the store?" Pause. "Yeah, of course." Or how his phone suddenly started living face down. Always, even when he wasn't using it. I noticed, but I told myself not to be that person, not the paranoid one, not the one who doesn't trust their partner. After all, he'd given me no real reason. Except, sometimes he'd get home later than usual. Blame it on traffic, a client dinner, a forgotten errand. The stories changed slightly from one telling to the next, but always just enough to sound believable. Almost. And I kept swallowing the doubt like it was bitter medicine I needed to take to stay sane. Then there were the lies he didn't even know he told, like when he said he'd never been to that new bar downtown. But a week earlier, he mentioned the drinks were overpriced. I called him on it, lightheartedly. He laughed it off, said I was misremembering, or confusing him with someone else. "You've got a wild imagination," he said. "Must be all the books you read." And I laughed too, but something in my stomach twisted. One night, I made dinner. Lasagna. His favorite. He came home late, didn't even look at the table, went straight to the shower, then bed, said he had a headache. The food stayed untouched, like the effort I made didn't even register. The next morning, he apologized, brought me flowers from the corner store. And like always, he knew exactly what to say. "I'm lucky you're so patient with me." "I know I've been distracted lately. It's just work." I nodded, because it's easier sometimes to accept the apology than face what might be behind it. I didn't want to admit it, but the trust was changing, not breaking, just bending. The kind of bend that you tell yourself is temporary, that it'll snap back once the stress goes away. But deep down, I felt it. That whisper in my gut that said, something's off. Still, I ignored it. Because when you love someone, you don't go digging through their silence with a shovel. You wait, you hope, you pray you're just tired or overthinking, or letting past wounds talk too loudly. But what I didn't know then was, truth has a way of surfacing, and it always starts small, with a twitch, a pause, a missed beat, until one day it shouts. My birthday came that spring, a Saturday. Bright, cool, and still enough to feel like the world had paused just for me. I woke up expecting something. Not flowers, not gifts, just him. Fully present, fully mine for a day. But the bed was cold on his side. He'd left a note on the counter. Meeting ran late last night. Crashed at Desmond's. Be back this afternoon. Simple. No apology. No exclamation point. Just information. I stared at that note for a long time, like it might transform into something else if I blinked hard enough. He'd never missed waking up beside me on my birthday. Not once. I texted him. No reply. At noon, I made myself pancakes, stacked them high, the way he used to. But they didn't taste right. The apartment was too quiet. My phone buzzed a few times, friends wishing me well. I responded with emojis and heart reactions, but didn't have the energy to talk to anyone. At 4:27 p.m., he walked in. No cake, no card. Just a casual, "Hey, birthday girl." I asked where he'd been. He said Desmond's. They watched movies, lost track of time. He kissed my cheek, said he'd make it up to me, and that we could celebrate properly tomorrow. I smiled, but it felt distant, like I was watching us from across the room. We had dinner that night, candlelit even. He made reservations at a place we loved, but something had shifted. The spark in his eyes. Dimmer. The laugh he gave when I teased him about his tie. Offbeat. It was like I was dining with someone wearing Daniel's face. The shell was there, but the soul? I wasn't sure. When we got home, I found myself staring at our photos on the wall. Trips, birthdays, random goofy moments. And I wondered, was he pretending in all of them? Had something changed? Or had I just started to see clearly? Because love, real love, doesn't forget your birthday. Not like that. And maybe, just maybe, this was the first moment I stopped making excuses for him. The first moment I whispered to myself, this isn't what love is supposed to feel like. It was a Thursday, late afternoon, the kind of day where the light is soft and golden, and the world feels like it's winding down for something. I was cleaning, not because the apartment needed it, but because I needed the distraction. You know that feeling, when the silence is too loud, and scrubbing a countertop feels easier than sitting with your thoughts? Daniel was at work. Or at least, that's what I assumed. I was wiping down the hallway table when I noticed his coat, the navy one with the worn elbow patch. He usually kept it in the closet, but today it was tossed over a chair. Sloppy. Unlike him. I picked it up to hang it properly, and as I shook it out, an envelope slipped from the inside pocket. Thick. Unmarked. For a moment, I froze. It felt wrong to open it, But something in me already knew. This wasn't just loose receipts or a crumpled takeout menu. I peeled it open. Inside were several folded pieces of paper. Receipts. Hotel receipts. Restaurants I'd never been to. Dates that didn't match any of our plans. One was for a boutique hotel on the edge of town. 2 nights. Room service. Champagne. The name on the bill was his. Daniel. But he'd told me he was on a work retreat that weekend. Said it was all business. Nothing exciting. Except there was something else tucked inside the envelope. A handwritten note. Not to him. From him. It said, "Can't wait for this weekend. Just you and me. No interruptions. No name. No date. Just that." I stood there, holding pieces of paper that didn't scream betrayal, but whispered it, softly, directly into my gut. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I neatly folded everything back up, put the envelope exactly where I found it, and hung up the coat like nothing had happened. Because in that moment, I wasn't ready to confront it. I needed to understand it first, make sense of it, collect the facts like puzzle pieces before daring to say out loud what I already suspected. Because once you say it, you can't unsay it. Once you know, you can't unknow. So I sat on the edge of our bed, hands in my lap, and asked myself a question that would echo for weeks after. Who is he when I'm not looking? 2 days later, I saw her. Not in a dramatic, catch-him-in-the-act kind of way. It was quieter than that. More chilling because of how normal it looked. I had just finished lunch with a friend. We hugged goodbye outside a cafe downtown, one Daniel and I had been to before. As I turned to walk away, something caught my eye through the window. There he was. Daniel. Sitting by the window, smiling, laughing. Not the polite kind of laugh. Not the half-distracted chuckle he gave me at home lately. This was open, relaxed, intimate. Sitting across from him was a woman, pretty, effortless, wearing a light green sweater that I knew I didn't own, because I would have remembered. She leaned in. He touched her hand just for a second. And in that second, my world tilted. I stepped back from the window, heart pounding. I wasn't angry, not yet. Just disoriented. Like someone had turned gravity off and forgot to tell me. I didn't go in, didn't cause a scene. I couldn't. Instead, I stood across the street, half hidden by a tree, watching them like I was the ghost at my own life. After 10 minutes, he stood. Paid. They hugged, not long, but not awkward either. She walked east. He turned west, toward home. Our home. He didn't see me, didn't know I had been there, didn't know that with one glance, the image of that woman's face had etched itself into my mind. When he got home later that evening, he kissed me on the forehead, asked if I wanted to order in, told me he'd had a boring day at work. And I nodded, played along. Because I needed more than just a moment through a cafe window. I needed something that couldn't be explained away, that he couldn't twist or dismiss. I went to bed that night, pretending to be tired. Let him fall asleep beside me, his breathing slow, his arms warm. And I just stared at the ceiling, counting the seconds between heartbeats, waiting for the moment my heart would stop hoping I was wrong. It happened so casually, so stupidly casually, I almost laughed when I saw it. I was at my friend Julia's apartment. We hadn't seen each other in a while, so we spent the afternoon catching up over coffee, sprawled on her balcony with blankets and playlists from college. We talked about everything, work, relationships. That strange feeling of being in your 30s and still wondering if you're doing life right. At one point, she pulled out her phone. Did I ever show you pics from that cabin weekend we did back in April? She tapped through photos, laughing, telling me who was who. I wasn't really listening. I was just enjoying the way her voice made things feel safe again. And then, I saw it. A group photo. 5 or 6 people, taken at sunset, standing on a deck overlooking a lake. And there, near the edge, was Daniel. His arm was around the woman from the cafe. She was holding his hand. I felt my body go cold. Not panicked, not angry, just cold, like the moment your brain registers fire before the skin feels the burn. I stared, trying to convince myself that maybe it was someone else. Maybe it was just someone who looked like him. But I knew that profile, that smile, that exact freckle just below his eye. "What's wrong?" Julia asked. She looked over, followed my gaze. Her voice dropped. "Oh, you know Daniel?" I turned to her, carefully, very carefully. "How do you know him?" She blinked. "He came with Lauren. She said they were kind of seeing each other, off and on." Lauren. That was the woman from the cafe. I'd never known her name before that moment, and now it echoed in my head like a siren. I didn't say anything else, just nodded, made some excuse about needing to check on something at home. On the walk back, I didn't cry, didn't shake, didn't scream. I was numb, and numbness is its own kind of scream. That one photo, taken casually on a stranger's phone, posted quietly in a forgotten album, was louder than anything Daniel had ever said. It told the truth he had tried so hard to hide. And now, I had proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that my gut had been right all along, that I wasn't overthinking, I wasn't insecure. I was betrayed, fully, completely. And with a smile on his face, I waited until after dinner. He was sitting on the couch, feet up, watching a documentary about architecture. Of course. I stood in the doorway, quiet, holding my phone like it was something radioactive. He looked over, smiled the same practiced smile I'd seen 1,000 times. "Hey," he said, "you okay?" I nodded, walked over, sat across from him, not next to. He noticed. I saw it flicker in his eyes, that brief, barely there tension, the micro-adjustment of a man who senses something's off. I opened the photo, held it out. "Do you know where this was taken?" He blinked, slowly, then leaned forward, paused. "You okay?" he asked again, this time softer, measured. "Answer the question, Daniel." He stared at the photo, then at me, then back to the screen. "That's not me." A beat, a breath, a lie. I tilted my head. "Not you?" "It's the angle," he said, reaching for the phone. "People get mixed up in pictures all the time." I pulled the phone away, let out a quiet laugh. Cold, not amused. "You're wearing the exact jacket that's hanging in our closet right now." He looked at me, still calm, too calm. "You're overreacting." I felt something snap in my chest, quietly, finally. "No," I said, "I'm reacting." "Where did you get that photo?" "It doesn't matter." He leaned back, ran a hand through his hair. "Are you seriously going to blow everything up over a misunderstanding?" I didn't answer, because by then there was nothing left to misunderstand. "I trusted you," I said, voice low, even. "You still can," he said quickly, too quickly. And that's when I saw it. The shift. The moment when charm slid into calculation. When Daniel realized the script wasn't working. When the man I loved began to morph into someone else. Someone careful, controlled, manipulative. He softened his voice, tried to reach for my hand. "I messed up. That's all it is. I was confused. Things got blurry." "Things don't get blurry, Daniel. You either hold someone or you don't." Silence. Heavy, sharp, unavoidable. He sat there, still trying to read me, but I had already closed the book. Because when someone looks you in the eyes and tells you the sky isn't blue, even while standing under it, you stop arguing. You just walk away. I couldn't sleep that night. The bed felt unfamiliar, too big, too still. Even with Daniel next to me, pretending nothing had happened. He breathed like a man at peace, but his body stayed on his side of the bed, tense, waiting. By morning, I had made a decision. No more asking, no more guessing. I needed truth, the kind you don't have to argue with, the kind that's written down. When he left for work, I waited 10 minutes, just in case he came back for something. Then I got up and went searching, not with the fury of a betrayed lover, but with the precision of someone who had been lied to and refused to be lied to again. I started with the closet, the drawers. Nothing. Then I remembered the locked desk drawer. He'd once told me it was just boring tax stuff. I found the key on his keyring. It clicked open like a whisper. Inside. Another phone. Black. Plain. No case. My hands trembled as I powered it on. It lit up without a passcode. I don't know what I expected, but what I saw still knocked the air out of me. Messages, photos. Not one woman, two, maybe three. Different names, different tones. Some flirty, some deeply emotional. He wasn't just cheating, he was living in other relationships, creating different versions of himself, telling stories, spinning lives. And there it was. Screenshots of bank transfers to someone named L.R. Lauren, the woman from the cafe, from the cabin. He'd been sending her money. There were conversations about trips, about their future, about finally being free. One thread ended with, "I just need a little more time. She's not suspicious." I stared at that line. Let it sear into me. She's not suspicious. Except I was. I had been. And now, I knew. I scrolled deeper, found emails, a second bank account, a separate email address. He had a whole digital world I wasn't part of, one that ran parallel to mine, until they finally collided. I took photos, saved everything, and then I sat back, in the silence of our apartment. The apartment he once said felt like us, like home, and I realized it was never ours. It was a stage, a carefully built set, for a story he was directing behind my back. And the worst part? I didn't even have a role in it. Not really. I didn't want to meet her. Not really. Not out of curiosity. Not to fight. And certainly not to beg. I wanted closure, context, something real. Because when someone breaks your heart in silence, you start needing witnesses, people who can confirm it wasn't just in your head. I found Lauren's name on a tagged post. A mutual acquaintance had commented on her photo. I messaged her, short. Director, calm. "Hi, I think we need to talk. It's about Daniel." She replied 3 hours later. "Is this a joke?" I said no, and sent the photo, the one from the cabin. She went quiet for a day. Then, where? We met at a bookstore cafe, someplace neutral, public, but quiet enough for the words we needed to exchange. She arrived wearing sunglasses and tension, sat across from me like I was an interrogation, not a person. "I don't know what you want," she said. "I want the truth," I replied. "About how long you've known him, about what he told you." She blinked, then laughed, but not like she thought it was funny. She pulled out her phone, scrolled, held it up. Photos, texts, him, smiling. "He told me you were his ex-wife," she said. "That the divorce was recent, but you were still around, and angry, and controlling." I felt my stomach turn, not from shock, from recognition. That's what manipulators do. They rewrite history while it's still happening. "I've been living with him for 2 years, I said. "We're not divorced. We were never even married, but I thought we were building a life." Her face cracked. It wasn't pity, it was rage, the kind that comes when you realize you've been fed poison disguised as love. She slumped back in her chair, silent. Then she whispered, "I thought I was the only one." I nodded. I did too. We sat there for a long time. 2 women, once strangers, now bound by the same betrayal. Eventually, she told me everything. How they met. How he charmed her. How he always had an excuse when she wanted to meet his family, or see where he lived. She had never even been to our apartment. "I should have known," she said, but I shook my head. Number, he's good at this. Because that's the truth no one talks about. You don't fall for lies because you're stupid. You fall for them because they're crafted for you. And Daniel, he was an artist. As I left that cafe, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt hollow, but clear. Like I'd finally reached the center of a maze I never meant to enter. And now, I just needed to find my way out. The day I chose myself wasn't loud. There was no grand exit, no suitcase thrown down the stairs, no screaming match in the rain. It was quiet, methodical, like closing the last page of a long, painful chapter. I started with the bank, closed our shared account, opened a new one, just mine, changed my passwords, all of them. I called my sister, told her everything. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just said, "Come stay with me if you need to." And for the first time in months, I felt the floor beneath me again. Next, I made copies of everything I'd found, photos, screenshots, emails, printed them, labeled them, not for revenge, for protection. Because when someone builds a world of lies, they'll do anything to keep the illusion alive, even if it means painting you as the villain. I wasn't going to let that happen. That evening, Daniel came home with takeout. Pad Thai, my favorite. He even brought the mango sticky rice. I watched him. Really watched him. The way he smiled. The ease in his body. As if he still believed he had me, secured. Tamed. I let him talk. Asked about his day. Nodded in all the right places. Because now I knew. I knew who he was. And he didn't know that I knew. That's power. Not rage. Not violence. Information. I waited until he went to take a shower. Then I went to the drawer where I'd hidden my packed bag. Small. Just the essentials. Wallet, laptop, documents, photo album. He didn't hear me leave. Didn't even notice the sound of the door closing. Not until it was too late. I left him a note. Short. Final. I know everything. Please don't contact me. I didn't want an apology, or a fight, or another gaslighted conversation where truth bent around his convenience. I wanted peace. And walking out that door, into the cool night air, was the first breath of real peace I'd taken in years. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later, a missed call, then another, then a message. "We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding." I didn't reply. Because I'd spent so long drowning in his version of reality, I had almost forgotten how to swim on my own. Not anymore. I was no longer in the business of giving him space in my story. That chapter was closed, locked, and I was finally free. I didn't throw the photo away. The one from the cabin. The photo that cracked the illusion. That pulled me out of his fiction and slammed me into truth. No, I printed it. In full color, 5x7, I framed it. Not out of spite, but out of memory. Not of him. Of me. The woman who finally opened her eyes. I placed it on a shelf in my new apartment. Not in the living room, but in the hallway, next to a mirror. So every morning, when I walk out the door, I see where I came from, and who I am now. People ask why I kept it. Why I'd want to look at something so painful every day. But here's the thing. That photo didn't ruin me. It revealed me. It forced me to face the things I ignored. The way I silenced my instincts. The way I made myself small to fit his needs. That photo reminded me, trust is not blind. Love is not silence. And peace never comes from pretending. It also reminded me that betrayal doesn't start with big moments. It starts with little ones. A missed text. An odd tone. A lie that feels almost true. And survival? It starts the moment you stop explaining away your pain to protect someone else's comfort. So I made a list. Not of what he did, but of what I learned. 1. Never confuse attention with care. 2. Gaslighting often sounds like love if you're starved for validation. 3. Your gut is wiser than your excuses. 4. The right person will never make you question your reality. 5. If you need proof, go find it. And when you do, believe it. Now, when I walk past that photo, I don't feel anger. I don't feel grief. I feel gratitude. Because I got out. Because I didn't wait for a bigger betrayal. Because I chose myself. And somewhere deep down, I hope he sees the space I've carved out without him. A space that's cleaner, calmer, and honest. No secrets, no masks. Just me. Real, messy, and whole. That photo was supposed to break me, but instead, it became the first piece of the life I built from the ruins. I sleep better now, Not because everything is perfect, but because the silence I live in is mine. No shadows hiding in phone screens, no second guessing where he is, no flinching when I hear keys in the door. Just peace. A quiet that hums, not haunts. My apartment is smaller, the walls are thinner, the kitchen doesn't have granite countertops, but it's mine. Every fork in the drawer, every photo on the fridge, every pair of shoes at the door. And you know what? It's the first time in years I've felt safe in a space I sleep in. I read again, late into the night, with a blanket over my knees and soft music playing in the background. I light candles just for me. I dance while folding laundry. I talk to myself in the mirror, not out of madness, but out of reconnection. And sometimes, when I least expect it, the tears come, not for him, but for the girl I used to be, the one who apologized too quickly, who said it's okay when it wasn't, who believed love had to be earned with silence and patience and self-sacrifice. I miss her sometimes, but only a little, because now I protect her. Now I live with open eyes. Not every night is easy, but every morning feels like a small beginning. I've learned to trust myself again, to listen to that quiet voice inside me, the one I used to mute for the sake of harmony. I haven't seen Daniel since I left, and I don't need to. I don't need closure from him. He doesn't have the words that could close anything, because the ending? It wasn't a conversation, it was a choice. Mine. Tonight, as I sit here telling you this, I want you to know, you don't need fire to burn your past. Sometimes, all it takes is a truth you're willing to stand in, a photo, a whisper, a knowing, and from there, a new life. Gentler, wiser, stronger. So wherever you are right now, whatever silence you're sitting in, know this. You are not alone, you are not broken, and you are not foolish for trusting someone who didn't deserve it. You just needed that one moment, that one turning point, to begin again. Good night, my friend, and thank you for walking with me through the storm and into the stillness. End of script. Good night.